this, Jude. Obviously, you're an experienced stuntman and coordinator, but you had a very unusual kind of apprenticeship, if you want to use that word. Tell us about that, because it's truly extraordinary.
Well, the reason why I got into this business was when I was growing up, I loved movies, and in the UK it was films like...
I'm just going to... We do definitely have a problem with your...
a mic problem.
Oh, hang on. Do you know what? Yeah. Rookie mistake! That'd be me.
Take two. You were asking me about my background. I mean, to try and condense 32 years, when I grew up as a child of the video generation. So I discovered the Bond films, Indiana Jones, Star Wars, Jaws on videotape, and I loved movies. And then when I got to about the age of 7 or 8, I started learning martial arts, and that's when I discovered Asian action films, Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan, and so on. And as I was going through school and enjoying more movies and doing school plays and so on, I knew that was the direction I wanted my career in life to go in. But I wasn't quite sure if the UK was the place for me. And when I was 18 years old and school was about to finish, you do sort of reach this crossroads of, do I go out into the world and look for work, or do I go into further education? I thought about film school, I thought about drama school, but I kind of thought, wouldn't it be better to go to the place where they do it the best, get paid for the privilege, and to just have a wonderful life experience at the same time? And when you're 18, you can afford to sort of do those things, and if they don't work out, so what? Just go home and take a more, typical route. So yeah, when I was 18, I went to Hong Kong in order to try and make action films.
So when you say you went to Hong Kong, what did that experience mean to you, and how is it different to, say, how action movies are made in Hollywood or in the West?
I think Hong Kong films certainly have their faults, but in terms of action cinema, I think they are the masters, or at least they were. And at the time I went to Hong Kong in the end of 1996, the industry was beginning to start quite a serious slump, which I don't think it's recovered from. But in the mid-90s, Hong Kong was just behind Bollywood in terms of output. So in Hong Kong they were making around 300 films a year around 1993. And when I was in Hong Kong, certainly, I worked on some of the bigger movies like Jet Li films or Jackie Chan films, but I also got to work on some of the Hong Kong B movies, and I think I probably learned more on the B movies than I did on the big pictures, because some of them were shot in 6 days or 7 days, 35mm cinema features being shot in a very short space of time. And I could have just let it be a passive experience and just done the punches and the kicks and taken the money, but I tried to learn different things. And one director I worked with, a man called Aman Chung, I think I did 3 films with him, and he came from an editing background, and I remember saying to him, how the hell do you get these films shot so quickly? And he said, I'm editing in my head. And that was what he did. I mean, I can understand why in the West editors want to be given coverage, but when I've seen people try and do films with tight budgets and tight schedules over here, I think what often happens on the first day of shooting is they fall behind, and they stay behind for quite a long time, and then things get cut. So that's also to the detriment of the movie. I've probably waffled on far too much.
No, that's actually that wasn't what I was going for, but
yeah.
that was actually more useful than I think where we might have gone, because I think it's a really salient point that you know, especially in the digital age when there isn't film stock costs, that people do overshoot and they let the camera roll, and it's not just the impact of the stock, it's the time, both in post and on set. So that, I mean, just tell us about the differences in the way that you approach stunt work in Hong Kong as opposed to everywhere else.
For one thing, in Hong Kong, the action director or the stunt coordinator, I think he's treated with a little bit more deference than he possibly is over here. And in Hong Kong, a lot of the time, the action director, stunt coordinator, martial art choreographer would be more like what you would call a second unit director in the UK or the States, in that he's not just physically rigging a stunt so that somebody doesn't get hurt, but if it's an action film, he may well be deciding where the camera setups are, where the angles are, and also he'll be involved in the editing stages as well. And obviously, I think it's good to have a collaboration with the director on the action scenes. Otherwise, a film could end up being quite schizophrenic, where the action scenes are not in keeping with the dramatic scenes. But in Hong Kong, the action directors are seen as filmmakers, and it's not unusual for a stunt coordinator to go into directing whole features. So they're involved from pre-production right through to post.